What is going on, guys? This is Miasin, and as you can probably tell by the quality of my not only microphone but also my face, I'm a slightly uglier than usual. I was gonna say something else because of the fact that I am using my laptop's webcam and not my actual camera. So it is what it is. But once I'll be back from Brazil, things will change, of course. But yeah, the YCS is going to be insane. By the time you're watching this video, I'm probably already playing on day 1, so hopefully you'll also see me in day 2. And hopefully you will see me holding a trophy at the end of the whole thing. But yeah, today I will be going over a bunch of cards that I think are extremely powerful if you draw them going first. They usually spell insta-win, especially if you draw them in combination with your combo, and you go either uninterrupted, or your opponent interrupts you, and you punish him even more for interrupting you, because some of these cards are pretty much like that. But before we go any further into the explanation of anything, friendly reminder to smash the like and subscribe button. You already know the drill. Thank you so much. And now let's proceed. Alright, so the first card that I will obviously be going into is the card that I personally believe is the MVP of every side deck right now. It's a card that was not really good in last format, but right now it's insane. It is Dimensional Barrier. Now, the reason why we're seeing so many D-Bearers at the moment is because a lot of really good decks use the extra deck outside of Link Monsters, and obviously Link Monsters are very good. There is another card that covers Links as well, but Dimensional Barrier covers Ritual, Fusion, Synchro, Xyz, and Pendulums. Only one card type. It's not like all of them at the same time. Obviously, that's like Artifact Sanctum. But the cool thing about D-Bear is that you can also call Ritual, so you can also cover Voice's Voice. And if you're calling Synchro, you are insta-winning pretty much against Tenpai Dragon. They can't really do much to kill you. A lot of people are not really running the OTK package with World Sea Dragon, Zelantis, Raging Phoenix, Princess, etc. The exact same thing that the Snake Eyes deck does. And you can also call, I don't know, like Fusion and insta-win against Despia. Or you can call Xyz and insta-win against Purely. This card honestly is just really unfair when you use it. The way you can counter D-Barrier would be by cross out if you are also playing one D-Barrier in your side deck. You just side one D-Barrier in, going second with 3 cross out. And if they have like D-Barrier, I guess you can beat them that way. That's what the Purely and Despia deck used to do. Because, it is one card that pretty much just beats you on the spot. So yeah, it's obviously a really strong card. If you can play 3 of this card, try to play 3. It really is that good. It's not an exaggeration. The only like bad matchup for this card really would be the Snake Eyes decks. But that's about it, because obviously they don't really have to Synchro Summon like even the Pure build, and Jet Synchron is not in everyone's deck list. You would be surprised. I mean, not necessarily surprising, because they've lost Boreal Savage and Baron de Fleur, so whatever. Anyways, the next card is Simul Archfiend. Now, this card is interesting because I used to not really understand how the card functions. It reads, this turn neither player can special summon monsters with the same card types, Ritual, Fusion, Synchro, Xyz, or Link they already control, not they currently control. So in other words, you can flip this card even when there is no monsters on the field, and it'll continuously check if you are breaking the rule of Simul Archfiends or not. So if your opponent, for example, summons a Ritual, like one Ritual monster, he can't summon a second Ritual. Same thing with the Fusion, Synchro, Xyz, or Link. Your opponent summons like a Relinquished Anima, he cannot go into an SP Little Knight. It does linger, and you can shotgun it on an empty board, which really matters. And this is an Archfiend card, so it is searchable off of Archfiend Iris, and you can discard this card off of the purely quickly spell cards in order to get its effect in order to search similar Archfiends. But if you discard this off of, like, let's say Twin Twister, it's not going to work. Archfiend Iris does have to be sent by a card effect in order to be able to search that Archfiend card, and the purely quickly spell cards, they don't discard by a card effect, it's actually a part of the, by a cost, it's rather a part of the effect. So that's the reason why cards like the Dark Worlds and Archfiend Iris and the Shaddolls, they all get their effects when you pitch them with purely Delicious Memory, but not Twin Twister. So very good card, and it is extremely good against the Snake Eyes deck while also being good against everything else. So I think Simul Archfiends, there is an argument to play it over D-Barrier. It's really up to you, but against the Despia deck, D-Barrier is just like better. And against Purely, D-Barrier is also better because they can't even summon one monster, so yeah, it's gonna hurt them even more. Now, obviously, we got Magic Deflector. That is a classic. You can use this card very well against Tenpai Dragon, honestly. It's really good. You get to counter their Kaimin and also their Field Spell. Now, obviously, they can chain Kaimin to this, but if they start immediately with Kaimin, then you can negate that, and then if they have, like, the Field Spell on top, they're gonna lose even harder. So in other words, like, the sheer existence of this card forces your opponent's Tenpai players to play differently, and if they don't, well, they're gonna be getting very, very hard punished, because this card, Magic Deflector, negates all kinds of spell cards except rituals and normal spell cards. So obviously, Voice's Voice, unfortunately, it is somewhat resilient to Magic Deflector, but they still lose out on the continuous spell, which is pretty good. And yeah, honestly, anything with field spells, Magic Deflector is usually good against. Like, this card's good against Kashtira. It turns off their field spells, so less starters, and also Kashtira Birth. It's a great card. I really like Magic Deflector in a world where we're seeing a lot of quickly spell cards as board breakers as well. Enemy Controller, Forbidden Droplet. These cards are great. Magic Deflector is going to be helping you out with that. And if you are not already losing to Super Poly, you can call Magic Deflector, and then you can play into Super Poly while your opponent plays, like summon a bunch of fire monsters off of like the Flamberge, and then you are going to be immune to Super Poly, so that's another thing to take into consideration. But if your opponent chains to Super Poly to Magic Deflector, it will hurt a little bit. Anyways, Different Dimension Ground, this card is pretty much a Dimensional Fish or Macrocosmos, but that affects both players, but only for one turn. So even the decks that do lose to Macrocosmos, they can still side in Different Dimension Ground, because again, you're pretty much only using this to hurt your opponent, not really like forever. So yeah, very good card. You can definitely side this in Voice's Voice when you are going first. Black Goat Laughs is remarkable. It's very good, especially in Labyrinth. You can reset this card over and over. You can discard it with the Furnitures and just get so much value on your opponent's turn. The on-field effect is particularly good. It reads, declare one monster card name. This turn, neither player can special summon monsters with that original name except from the grave. So against the Tenpai Dragon deck, right? You call their fire monster, the Chanjua or whatever. They changed the name from Zangdora to something weird. And they basically can't synchro summon, because if they can't normal summon the Zangdora, then they are lacking that level 4 tuner monster, and they're not summoning from the grave. That they can't do that. Tenpai Dragon is a deck that really just summons from the hand and summons from the deck. That's pretty much it. Summons from the deck. I mean, they search from the deck and then they special summon from the hand. You get the point. But yeah, Black Goat Laughs is insane. It's really just really good, and even the graveyard effect is good, and it's pretty much like the old school breakthrough skill. So you use this card and you have value with it again. And that's what I find to be beautiful about the Black Goat's Laughs. In terms of power level, it's less good, but against like the certain specific decks, this card has the potential to be just as good, honestly, as any of the cards I just mentioned, but even better because of the fact that it has a graveyard effect, and it is a very good discard fodder. So if your deck plays a lot of discards, and I don't know, you're playing like Imseti or like King Sarcophagus with Zombie Vampire, you probably might want to consider playing this card somewhere, either in the main deck or the side deck. You can main one if you want to, and side into more copies. That's perfectly respectable. Also works really well with Beatrice. Now we've got two relatively similar cards, but that are completely different at the same time. Shared Ride and Mistaken Arrest. Mistaken Arrest is a two-sided mistake. A very good card, obviously, but it does affect you until, because you use this card and it affects both players until the end of your next turn after this card resolves. So regardless of when you use this card, it will always affect you somehow. So if you can play this in like Unchained or a deck that doesn't really search too much, then it can definitely be great. And Shared Ride, it doesn't hurt your opponent. It's rather like Max C. It really just says like, okay, are you really sure you want to search that much? Because I might draw into my hand traps and kill you. But if you get OTK'd, it's not gonna matter. Like if you draw like a bunch of cards against Tenpai Dragon and they kill you, then your resources don't matter. So I think Shared Ride, even though it's a decent card, it's only really great in like grindy matchups. So for example, the Sky Striker mirror match, Shared Ride has the potential of being very good. But yeah, it's still a decent card overall in Yu-Gi-Oh! Now the Solemn cards, both of them are good. There's an argument to play like any of them depending on the situation. Judgment is particularly good in trap decks because it fixes your issues, protects you from Lightning Storm, Duster, etc. And Solemn Strike, it's just very good in a hand trap war because you're getting hand trap to death, and then you can strike your opponent's next hand trap next turn when you like top deck another play or something, or you can strike your opponent's engine. Normal summon Snake Eye Ash, strike that. You can't dodge with Kirin, there's no cross out for that. There's no droplet to like send and dodge like infinite impermanence. So it's really hard to play through Solemn Strike, honestly. It is the one interruption that you honestly just can't really beat. It really is that good. And for going first cards that are, I guess, a little more simple in the way they operate, Cosmic Cyclone, I mean, it's a 1-for-1. That should definitely be in your side deck anyways, because it's really good going second. I think this is one of the best cards in Yu-Gi-Oh! At the current moment, at least side deck-wise. Main deck-wise, maybe not, but yeah, it's a good card. Again, collateral damage, you use it against Voice's Voice going first, or Yubel, any field spell-oriented deck. So if you don't want to play Magic Deflector, Cosmic Cyclone is pretty much like one of the best replacements, because with Magic Deflector, you're especially hitting field spells and continuous spells, which is something that Cosmic Cyclone deals with perfectly. And now for the floodgates, skill drain, anti-spell, rivalry goes in match. Sorry, there can only be one goes in match. Skill drain can be played at 3. That's the only difference that it has with all these cards, because they're pretty much all the same. They shut down game mechanics. So skill drain, if you can play this and either send it with your Snake Eye monsters or dodge it with, like, I don't know, like your Kirin. You can go like, you can even break skill drain going second. It's a great card. And it beats a lot of matchups, and it definitely fixes a lot of your flaws. Like, you can get Shifter, you skill drain, and then you survive, and then you win. Anti-spell, it protects you from board breakers, so I think it's a great card. And then Rivalry can be played in 10 by Dragon, and it makes it so that even if you're forced to go first, it's still decent. There Can Only Be One is unfair against 10 by Dragon. They cannot win. They only play dragons, obviously, because Rivalry and There Can Only Be One are, you know, exact opposites. And Goes in Match has nothing to do with these two cards, because it affects the attribute, but I think it's the worst one out of the 3. It's still a good card, but I think Rivalry and There Can Be One are particularly good. There's no such thing as a deck that can beat both of these cards at the same time, because you always lose to one. The only exceptions would be stun decks. Like Runic Stun can play both, but it's not a real deck. It's a deck that just cheeses you. Anyways, another floodgate would be Dimensional Fissure. I kind of explained it already. It's pretty much the same thing as Different Dimension Ground. The difference is that Dimensional Fissure you can use right away, and then you can protect yourself from Effect Veiler and Droll and Logbird, which I think is definitely something that can help the Flunderies deck really well. So if you can play that in your Flunderies deck going first, I just hope that you don't actually listen to my advice, because otherwise we're gonna have to deal with even more Flunder, and that is absolute cancer. Yes! Anyways, Caught by the Grave, the only card that can stop Shifter, other than cross out and playing one Shifter, which is bait, don't do that. And finally, Triple Tactic Talent and Thrust, and with Thrust you got a bunch of targets, pretty much every normal trap card that I showed here, or you can also play Karma Cannon. This is a Book of Eclipse that cannot get ashed, and it also gets rid of unaffected by card effect monsters, so if you gotta play against Raid Raptor, well, that's fine, you can deal with them now. So the Labyrinth deck definitely can naturally beat the board going second, which is pretty nasty. And yeah, talent is just, you know, talent is talent. Going first, going second, this card should probably be in your deck somewhere. Main deck, side deck, doesn't really matter too much. But yeah, that's it for this video, guys. Thank you so much for watching. Jesus, thank you. And yeah, don't forget to like, subscribe, blah, 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 blah. And I will see you very soon. Jesus, I was gonna say very shortly, once I win this YCS. Peace.